So Bitcoin just did something for the very first time this cycle, and it's a little bit worrisome if you are a bull. And I want to talk about it, and I want to talk about what I'm kind of expecting here for Bitcoin and what I think could happen with the cycle. So if you like the content, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. And make sure you wait till the end because we're going to talk about something very important with USDT as well at the very end. So what is the thing that Bitcoin has now done for the very first time this cycle? And that is it has flipped weekly structure bearishly, guys. Okay. Now, hear me out. Okay. When I say first time this cycle, I mean, really first time this cycle, but I don't care about anything to the left of this line. Okay. I'm talking about like since, you know, the jets were blasting off, right? Since blast off. And this is kind of worrisome, but it's also kind of not. And stick with me here. Your high time frame structure as follows right now on the weekly time frame, okay, is low, is high, is higher low, is higher high, is higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high SFP, and then lower low, okay? So this is our first break of the entire cycle. Now you might say, let's make this red. You might say, Gio, there was a bearish break right over here. And I would say, no, this was a range. And this, you didn't really have a down move like this. This is very different than this. This is a range, but this is an internal range. It all resides within the same few candles. You don't actually get lower price action until way over here. Whereas here, you can see this is what I call swift structure, okay? Swift structure is structure that is undeniable. Like this is ambiguous structure, okay? This is swift structure. So I would have skipped this, and I did skip this. And because I skipped this, I was expecting another high when we were down here at 74K. Okay, so where am I going with this? Well, your structure just flipped bearish for the very first time, and it's a pretty notable break. You also might say, well, Gio, it flipped bearish way back when yonder over here at 108K. And I would say, yeah, there is a way to draw your structure that way. However, if you are going to take it the safer route and you are going to staircase your break of structure line, right? It would be line, wick, and then now that actually officially broke, officially making your weekly structure bearish, okay? This is notable. Now, to counter the weekly bearish structure, your monthly time frame is very clearly still bullish, okay? So what would that look like? That would look like this, where you have low, you have high, you have higher low, you have higher high, higher low, and higher high. So your expectational order flow, or your EO, on the monthly would be to make a higher low and then make a higher high. But your expectational order flow on the weekly time frame, which if we draw back our structure, would be high, low, higher high, lower low, lower high, lower low. So how do we navigate this? Because your monthly's telling you up, your weekly's telling you down. Most people will tell you that the higher time frame takes precedent. And yes, I would be inclined to agree, but also it's not about the time frames, right? If you've been around the channel, then you know I don't really care about time frames. Okay, I think that they're just a way of interpreting things, but it's not so much the time frame that matters. It's the price action around that time frame that matters. So you definitely can't say, or I wouldn't say that the weekly break is not important by any means because the monthly's still looking up. I personally wouldn't say that. Okay, so how do we navigate this now? Well, I'm going to take you to my folders. I just finished stream with the Nexus, okay? And we came up with the same exact structure that I'm letting you guys know about right now. And the way that we trade this, the way that I'm personally going to trade this is understanding the price action. Remember, it's not about the time frames, that right? That's why the weekly flipping bearish for the first time this cycle isn't the worst thing in the world, right? I'm not saying we're never going to go to an all-time high again and the cycle's over and whatnot, but it's equally, you know, the monthly, you can't just say, oh, it is going higher because the monthly is still pointing up, because eventually the trend is going to end and eventually the bear market is going to come, and we are in the last month or second last month of the cycle, if you believe in the cycle. I personally don't, but you know, whatever. So here's how I personally am going to play what you see on my screen here. We have a couple zones that are left to be unmitigated. On stream, I've talked about this level here down at 86K-ish, okay? For me, my what I call nexus zone, my high probability zone, for Bitcoin to potentially bounce and potentially make an all-time high and potentially give everybody the price action and such that they want is down to 86, maybe 87K. A lot of people would be scared about that. A lot of people would be spooked out about that for whatever reason. I don't know, because your monthly structure is still pointing up. Now, I mentioned that price action is what is more important than the time frames, and I will take that to the grave. And so let's talk about the price action on Bitcoin. If, again, you've been around the streams or around my videos, then you know I've made very clear cases as to why we never need to see $126,000 again, okay? I'm going to go as far as saying that this not only could be this, geez, my words, not only, I'm not even going to edit that out. Not only could this be the top of the cycle, but let's just say hypothetically that the 4-year cycle is broken and we never have another cycle again or whatever. This could be the all-time high forever, okay? For all I know. Every single price that Bitcoin makes that's a new all-time high could lead to the all-time high forever. Am I saying that? No, but it could be. Why does price not need to come back up here? Remember, it's about the price action. It's not about the time frames. Why does price never need to come back up here ever again? Well, because we have clearly a Model 1 distribution at the highs. Okay, why is this important, and what even is a Model 1 distribution? Don't worry about the fancy hanky-panky name, okay? It's not about the name. It's never been about the name. What is happening here? You always need to understand. Remember, I teach you why the market moves the way it does so that you can have confidence with your trades. We got super giga short here. We got super giga short at 116K. When I say we, I mean the Nexus, link in the description down below. We got super giga short at 111, okay? I was saying that if you lose 111K, there is maybe a 5% chance that you don't see 100K and you make a higher high. Obviously, that didn't work out. 95% chance that we did go lower, and we did go lower, okay? What is happening here? Listen, smart money does not buy at the highs, okay? Despite what you may think. The only one that buys at the highs, that's an idiot, is Michael Saylor, okay? We do not buy at all-time highs. That's retarded. Smart money is distributing, okay? You go on Twitter, you check on social media, you check YouTube, and people are like, oh yeah, the big money is quietly accumulating. No, they're not. They are distributing. This is your distribution, clear as day. If the big money was accumulating, the price wouldn't be going down, it would be going up, okay? Or it would be, you know, this is a distribution, and then this is your follow-through after your distribution. But what is a distribution? What is happening here? Big money buys down here. Sorry. Big money buys down here. Big money buys down here. Big money buys down here, okay? And big money sells up here, and they sell up here, right? But in order for them to sell, they need to convince you, the retail, dumb, Michael Saylor, dumb, to buy up here, okay? So how do they do that? Well, they can't force you to sell your bags, right? And you know the narrative around all of social media and everything else is always never sell your Bitcoin, never sell your Bitcoin. They will almost like attack you for selling your Bitcoin. Like it's an absolute tragedy. It's like the worst thing. It's the most offensive thing you could do to ever sell your profit, right? So they need to convince you to sell up here. Or sorry, they need to convince you to buy up here so that they can sell, right? You can't buy something that isn't for sale, and you can't sell something that nobody wants to buy. So they need to convince you to buy up here. And how do they do that? Well, they put in a significant high, and then they prance around, and they get people to short, and they get them to put their stop loss here, and they make them think that we're going to zero, and they caught the exact high of the bull run, okay? But in reality, what happens? Price comes back up, it stops out all those people that were shorting from over here, and then price goes down again. Well, what does that look like? What is this stopping out? If you are short from here, okay, and then you get stopped out here, what is that? This is a market long, okay? So while you, the dummy, the retail that shorted here and put your stop above this high thinking that we were going to go to zero, while you did that and you got stopped out here on that market buy, in order for somebody to buy, somebody has to sell. Who's selling the Bitcoin? Is the smart money that's down here, okay? They repeat the process one more time at the high. This is called a Model 1. That's not a 1. Model 1 accumulation, okay? 1, 2, 3. We've talked about this a very long time ago on the market, okay? We've talked about this extensively on the channel. Sorry, not on the market, on the channel. Shouts out to White Phoenix, okay? We've talked about this like comprehensively. Don't know if that's the right word either, but whatever. We've talked about it, okay? So remember, it's about the price action. If smart money already distributed at the high, why do they need to send price back up here? If they have no intention of sending it back up, they already did their selling, right? So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because in order for, and this is just my opinion, in order for price to make it back up here, I imagine they're going to need to accumulate, which is the exact opposite of a distribution, right? This is 1, 2, 3 taps. This accumulation was 1, 2, 3 taps, okay? This third tap could also be a higher low, and that would be a model 2 accumulation. By the way, up here, that was a model 1 distribution. I don't know if I put a D or an A there, but that was supposed to be a D. And this is a model 2 accumulation if you put a higher low. Lower low is a model 1 accumulation. Anyways, doesn't matter, okay? Here's where I'm getting at. We've learned that in order for smart money to buy, they need to convince you to sell. And in order for them to sell, they need to convince you to buy. So they convinced you to sell down here by doing the inverse of what we talked about up here so that they could buy, fill up their bags, and then they could sell and dunk on your ass up here. Okay? Keep that in mind. So how does this all come together? We have an unmitigated zone at around $86,000. Am I saying that we're going to go to $86,000? No, not necessarily. We don't have to. But I think that if we don't go to $86,000, we are not going to see another all-time high. The reason I think that is because this zone has not been mitigated and they need to accumulate. Remember, I teach you why the market moves the way that it does so that you could have confidence with your trades, okay? We have to look at things based on the facts. We cannot just say M2 money supply this, the demand is so high this, and smart money is accumulating without any evidence to suggest and back up what you're discussing or what you're trying to state, okay? Everything that I'm telling you is not my opinion. This is just a fact on the chart, okay? You have to be able to differentiate. You have to put your emotions out of trading. And I'm not always right, okay? I'm not always right. But you have to put your emotion out of it, okay? You can't just oh, no, it has to go higher. We haven't had our euphoric state yet. It doesn't have to have its euphoric state. They already distributed up here. They already got the money. They've been buying since 15K. They don't need to have a blow off top. We don't need to have euphoria. And I've been saying that on the channel for the past 2 years that people are so entitled, right? Especially when it comes to the altcoins. Don't even get me started on the altcoins. Everybody's so entitled, right? And that's why we haven't had our alt season and whatever, and the blow off top, and it doesn't. Life does not work that way. Anyway, that's now my opinions. We're trying to make this no opinions. So here's where I'm getting with it. Why on earth would we come back down here and then not accumulate to send price back up to the all-time high? My answer is I imagine that we wouldn't. Okay, I imagine that we wouldn't. So I think that Bitcoin needs to accumulate down here. It needs to spend time down here. And ironically, this is what I think that the bulls don't know that they want. I think bulls just want up, 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 up. But if it does go up, 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 all that leads to is more distributing. In order for it to go higher, it must go lower. It must accumulate down here. You've heard me say on the channel many times, this is what happens when you don't properly accumulate. So what would this accumulation look like? Well, it would be a range similar to this. And I imagine it would be, a month, a couple months, some time to properly accumulate before having that blast off to the upside. Okay, you know it as consolidation. What is it? It is in fact accumulation or distribution. That's all ranges are. And if you can identify these ranges and play them objectively and put all the other stuff behind, don't pay attention, like M2 money supply and fear and greed index, whatever. Apparently today the fear and greed index went to 9, which is like a record low. Like, who cares about that? That doesn't mean anything. The fear and greed index has been low for the last month and it's been just, everything's been dying. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Anyway, here's what your accumulation, in my opinion, would look like and where it would look like. So we know that we need to have a range, and we know that we don't have to hit this, okay? We don't have to hit 84, 85, 86K, but it's preferred if we hit 84, 85, 86K because this zone is left unmitigated and they blasted off, okay? Team Rocket blasted off again from this zone. So it only makes sense to retest this zone for that next leg to the upside. So here's what I think may happen next. I think that we may form a range, and I think that our range might be a little bit bigger than most people, A, are comfortable with, and B, know how to trade. What I mean by that is I don't think that we're necessarily just going to come down right now and then range down here, and then that's that. I actually think that we are going to have an extensive and comprehensive range, something like this, where we still come higher, and then we go lower, and then whatever, okay? And the reason I say that is because our structure right now from the all-time high is as follows. We have high, we have low, we have lower high, we have lower low, we have lower high, we have lower low. So what is your expectational order flow based on your structure? Well, it is lower high, lower low, right? However, something I noticed while I was doing the practicing the game, or not the practicing the game stream, my apologies. Practicing the game stream, by the way, is every twice a week in the Nexus. We go over some trades, we do back testing, we go to random places, I take hypothetical trades, and you know, it's a very good educational moment for everyone to apply what they've learned in the course. Here's what I found during the Nexus stream, the preparing for the week stream that we just finished a couple hours ago. We have a couple of supply zones. So right now I'm only investigating from this high to this low. We have a couple of supply zones that I'm primarily interested in, okay? We have this one here, which is a 3-day zone, fine. But this one is the more interesting one to me. This 3-day zone right over here. Why? Why is this more interesting? Well, first of all, if we pull up our volume, where's my, kabam! We have a shit ton of volume up at around 110, 111-ish K, okay? If you've been around the channel, you've been around the live streams, I talked about the importance, sorry, this is so ugly. I talked about the importance of 111K. I talked about how no one is even allowed to talk about the word all-time high. No one's allowed to even mention the word all-time high until 111K is claimed confidently. What I thought was a possibility earlier last week was us to actually leave some ugly lows, come up above 111K, bounce off of 111K, it's down here actually, and then kind of range around here before going down or going up. That didn't happen, okay? But 111K, if you want to write down on your charts, 111K is the most important volume-based level, in my opinion, on the chart, okay? Very, very, very strong resistance at 111K. So why do I like that level? Well, we already went over our structure, right? Which was, as again, low, high, low, high, low. And we know that after we get that low, we're expecting a bounce and we're expecting a rollover. However, if we pull our squares back up, this 3-day zone right over here is an inducement block, okay? What is an inducement block? Well, earlier in this video, we talked about how market makers, in order for them to sell, somebody needs to buy. Okay, so what do? They get you down here, Mr. Oh, I just shorted the weekly candle that broke the bear market for the very first time. That we're just starting the bear market because the weekly structure just flipped to bearish. Okay, I'm gonna short here, and I'm going to put my stop loss above this high because that's what I was taught on YouTube, even though 95% of retail loses, but I'm still going to learn from them. I don't even know if they do this, but I imagine people are opening up this position right now. I imagine it. Swing traders, like high time frame people, you know, not scalpers like you and I probably, right? But I imagine this is what they're going to do. Well, why will this not work out? Because of something called inducement. Inducement, if you Google it, is basically just means to convince someone of something. And that is what I think the market makers are doing. I think the market makers are convincing you to put your stop loss here, and they're going to come up and they're going to stop out all these people and potentially hit my 110, 111-ish, this general zone, before getting our short down to potentially 84K or 86K or whatever. Now, again, am I saying that we're going there? No. Am I predicting that we're going there? No. Am I going to take a short there if I see the reaction that I want to see? Absolutely, yes, I am. And if you can see here, I've already prepared this position, that this is a swing short somewhere between 107, 108, and 110, 111 or whatever, okay? Are things subject to change? Yes, okay? In my last video, I showed you guys all these bullish PO3s, and they never happened, okay? I was wrong. I did actually truly believe that we were going to get this move with all these, you know, this PO3. I really did think we were going to get that. So again, my apologies. It's my fault. I'm not always going to get things right. Okay. For the most part, when I'm just focusing on Bitcoin, I'm pretty on point with it. Okay. When I mess up, when I start looking at everything, that's when I mess up the most. Anyway, I mess up everything when I look at everything. When I'm just laser focused, I'm good. So I think that we are actually going to make it up to that level. Okay. I do think we're going to make it up to like around... not necessarily 108. We don't have to come up and take that high, but I prefer that we do take that high. Okay, I do prefer that we take that high. And if we do take that high, I, again, will be looking for something like this. So right now, as of right now, because this is a bearish candle, just flip structure for the first time, you know, we've been in an excessive downtrend. Like it's been for the last 5 days, we're down 14% with really no breathing room at all. Okay, so it's been very excessive to the downside. What I'm looking for is something like you can see on your screen right now, right? Which is, what's your internal structure here? You see the down, the up, the down SFP. What I'm hoping for now is we get above this red box, which is another high volume level. I actually thought that this push, let me zoom in so you guys can see. I thought this push was going to actually sweep out the high and take you above here, but I was wrong about that. But what I'm looking for essentially is something like this, where we come up like this, we break that high, perhaps we come and get a back test back in our red zone. There's high volume here. Okay, 96 to 99, or sorry, 96 to 97, give or take. There's high volume there. So I imagine we come up, we struggle here a little bit, we pop up and then get a back test and then off and away. And then around, I don't know if it's going to make it to 100 because it's psychological or whatever, but let's just say around 100, 102, we either distribute and then fall and roll over, or we come up to my swing short zone, which is what I'm hoping for. I'm really, really praying for at 108, and then we can swing short that down to 86, okay? Now, again, I don't know if 86 is going to come. Things can change at all times. If this doesn't happen and we get above 111K, remember, 111, in my opinion, is the most important level on Bitcoin. And I think that if you can get above 111 and you hit like 120 and you come and you backtest 111 and you flip decent structure here, I think at that point you're going to all-time high. The question is, do you accumulate prior to getting that, or do you not accumulate prior to getting that? And I don't know. And so what I think is something like this may happen, and then effectively your range will be, you know, this will be your new range high, and then this will be your range low, and then, you know, you dance around and it's like this big of range instead of just ranging down here. Now, could I be wrong? Again, absolutely, 100%. And you know, these are all ideas, right? We don't just trade them because, oh, Trader Geo said this, I'm just going to put a limit order here and I'm going to copy the values to the right. No, we don't do that. Okay. We do not do that. Don't do that. But, you know, they're all ideas and you have to be able to be, you know, open to all possibilities. Okay. This is a trade that I'm absolutely looking for. And especially if we come up slowly. So look at how we are, like where we're at right now. Forget this doodle. If we just come up like this, and then you do this, and you leave all this liquidity, then yeah, that's a swing short down to here. Remember, we had a swing short from 111. We had a swing short from 116. We had a swing short from like 125-ish from here. So that's kind of what I'm thinking on Bitcoin. And, you know, obviously the rest of the market is going to follow suit. Since we're here, I'll go over like nothing crazy, but Bitcoin dominance right now. I think it was last week on stream or in a video, I talked about this nuke zone. It might have just been in the Nexus. We came up, we hit that nuke zone. We lost, we broke structure bearishly. And then now we hit the full send long alts level. Okay. So, I mean, I am bullish on alts right now. I thought that this was going to happen last week. So I was wrong about like the dump that happened prior to that. But I think, in my opinion, if it's time to long, it's time to long the alts, because I think that this is a very easy move to the downside, down to 5.8, whatever. This is a bunch of liquidity. I know that Bitcoin dominance isn't actually liquidity, but we trade it the same. I chart it the same and I treat it the same. And I've had success in doing so. So I do think that, you know, 58.1 is next. And I do think that alts are going to pump a lot more than Bitcoin if the market is going to rally. And remember, not rally, but have some relief. And remember, you know, your structure on Bitcoin, if we hide everything again, your structure on Bitcoin is just low, high, low. So either way, we're expecting, you know, some relief for a lower high, lower low, or a higher high SFP, lower low, or a higher high. I mean, those are really your only options if you were to even get a bounce here. So we're going to be looking for all of them. Okay, we're going to be looking for all of them. Now, at the beginning of the video, I told you to wait till the end because, you know, we got to talk about USDT. Okay, let's talk about USDT. I'm going to keep this kind of short, hopefully 5 minutes max. Okay. Here's the deal with USDT dominance, okay? And by the way, I am the king of USDT dominance, so if you want to leave me a comment calling me as such, you know, I will be open to that in the comments down below. You can tell me that I'm the king of USDT. I already know. Okay, let's talk about USDT. So we talked about how Bitcoin had a macro distribution on the high, okay? And for a long time now, we've been talking about how USDT dominance has a macro 2-year long, guys, this is 2 years, a 2-year long accumulation model, okay? Now, this accumulation model is targeting up at 6 point whatever, okay? If that happens, obviously, it's a bear market, and we're kind of getting there, okay? We're kind of getting there. That being said, if this accumulation model plays out in full, and we zoom out here, your actual target, remember, structure is what? Is low, is high, is higher low, is higher high, is higher low, higher high. Okay. The last time Bitcoin dominance was this high USDT dominance was this high was at the bottom of the bear market in 2022. However, right now, look at your structure. You're expecting to come and take that high, and you're expecting to go beyond that high, not necessarily just SFP it. So prices are going to get really bad in the bear market, in my opinion, especially because this accumulation model is clean. It is super clean. The stage is set. They don't have to go for it, but the stage is set. So why is that important? Well, when we were here on this third tap, me, Trader Geo, and the Nexus, we're talking about how this could be your bear market high or your bull market top, because we understood that we're in a range. We understand that this could be your third tap, right? And that you could blast up and you have nothing but liquidity above you. How can you? That's not even debatable. That is all liquidity. This could do this tomorrow and the whole market dies. That is a possibility. Yes, it can. I don't care about M2 money supply. Yes, it can. Okay. So we have a macro accumulation model. Fine. Where are we now in this macro accumulation model? Well, we have a range, and we still must respect the range for what the range is, and we still need to understand that we are overextended to the upside on USDT dominance, right? What is your structure? We have low, we have high, we have higher low, we have higher high, we have higher low, and we have higher high. So either way, you're expecting higher low and then higher high potentially, right? Well, if we remember our range rules and we open up our TA, what do you see on your chart over here? So you see this zone, okay? This zone right down here. Now, this zone is interesting to me because I thought I had another zone here, by the way. Let me zoom in. So where this originally bounced from, maybe I can delete this so you guys can see it. This zone, let's get rid of this too. Actually, whatever, here. This zone right over here, okay? I thought that this was going to come down to here. So I was actually wrongfully bullish on the market when we were here. I thought we were going to come down to here because this zone looks better. Now, what does that look like relative to Bitcoin? Remember, USDT dominance is inversely correlated to Bitcoin and the rest of the market. What's your structure? You have low, you have high, you have low, you have high, you have low, you have high. We said the same thing about Bitcoin, did we not? So if we go to Bitcoin, let me just go back here. I guess I'm flopping and groping on my things here. We go back to Bitcoin and we go back to like a higher time frame, right? Like this is the 8 hour, so we'll go to the 8 hour. We already said that we could expect 108, which would invalidate your structure. So you have high, you have low, you have lower, high, lower, low. We could expect something like this and then like that. Well, that would be inverse to this. Up, whoops. Up, down, up, lower, low, and then up like that. Right? Same thing, but the inverse. That's a possibility that I'm watching out for. Now, here's what's interesting to me about USDT dominance. If we zoom out and we remember our range rules, you can see very clearly that this 18-hour supply has just been hit. I labeled it out for you so nicely. I know. You're welcome. Okay? The 18-hour supply zone has now been hit. Why is this so important? Because when you're looking at your POIs, okay, when you have your POIs, you need to keep in mind that any one of your POIs price can react from, and you need to adjust your plan based on that. Right now in our range, if I hide all the TA and I hide this drawing, we have the range high, which is up here. We have this high, which is up here. And we have our 18-hour block, which is right over here. Can price go beyond this 18-hour block and mitigate this high? Hit this high? Yes, it can. And that is a POI. However, it could stop on this level. And how do we know if it's going to stop on this 18-hour block? We're going to wait for structure to flip in our favor to confirm it. So what is your structure up here? Your structure is low, is high, is higher low, is higher high. Fine. And then when you're looking at it internally, what do you have? This is a range, clearly. And your structure coming out of that range is up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and potentially down. So if we get a break here, then to me, I imagine that we are going to make it down to this level right over here, which is 5.1%. Which if, once again, we put our TA back on, that takes you to this zone over here. So this builds my case for Bitcoin to actually make it to that 108, 109, 110 potential scenario, right? Up here. This adds context to it. This adds confluence to it. Okay. Now, are there zones that could stop you? Absolutely. And we will be absolutely trading them and scalping them and day trading them and swing trading them if necessary. But this is what's happening right now on the macro, on the grand scheme of things, okay? This 18-hour zone is very important because we don't need to hit this high, okay? And if we start flipping real structure, real high time frame structure from up here, okay? What is that going to look like? Well, we hit an 18-hour zone and we need to flip, I would say this low here to have a decently high time frame structure flip, which would effectively confirm that 18-hour supply zone that it would hold, okay? So if that happens and we do make our way down to here, right? Your structure would be what? It would be low, it would be high, low, high, and then it would be lower, low. However, this is the kicker. Here's the nail in the coffin. If this exact thing happens and then price comes, like it hits this and then it comes back up like this and then it gives you a lower high, or sorry, a high, lower low, then I think that this is going to be a distribution and that this distribution may perhaps send you further down on this USDT dominance higher time frame range, and you may get that euphoric state that everybody wants, okay? Why does the euphoric state make sense if we're going to get that? How does it make sense? Not based on emotions, but how does it make sense based on the TA? It makes sense based on the TA. Guys, by the way, I know that this is a lot, okay? If you've been with me the whole time, if you're still listening, you're still watching, and you're gaining value, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you don't understand anything that I'm going over right now, we do this every single day in the Nexus, and in the Nexus course, I teach you all of this, okay? So it's included in your memberships. Link in the description down below. Enter the nexus.com, the #1 network on the planet when it comes to trading, and the proven results are there. Go in, ask anybody how their performance is, okay? I can show you mine, but it doesn't matter. Right? All these creators that are showing you their numbers, it literally doesn't matter because you're not me. I'm me. Okay? There's only one 5'2" and 3/4 wannabe senior non-financial advisor in the world. Okay? Which, by the way, since I'm here, all content presented is a complete joke and shouldn't be taken seriously. Gio is an incompetent 5'2" and 3/4 wannabe senior non-financial advisor. Crypto is a scam, making money online is possible. Global others 5 your discretion is advised. Okay? Please do me a solid. Hit the like button for me if I'm providing you value. The reason why this level is the most important, and by the way, guys, I will keep you updated, okay? I'm not gonna, this is a lot. This is very comprehensive. This is very advanced. I don't imagine that, you know, a lot of you are, and I don't mean this to be condescending, but are going to be able to keep up with everything that I'm saying, especially if you're not in the Nexus and you haven't learned all this stuff. But I will keep you up to date, okay? So not to worry. And go follow me on X, by the way. Sorry, I'm done chilling, I swear. But on X, I can, you know, talk about this more easy than on YouTube. Look how long this video is. If that happens, right, if we flip here and we flip high time frame structure and we get the reconfirmation, well, what is left for us to come for? And in my opinion, there's nothing for us to come for except potentially this Model 1 accumulation zone. And again, if you've been around the channel, this is a clear as day accumulation, okay? Clear as day accumulation in a bigger 2-year accumulation. So this is a big level. What do we know about accumulations? You either have a 1, 2, 3, or you have a 1, 2, 3. And this, my friends, is an inducement block where perhaps USDT dominance is destined for one more euphoric leg before popping up. Now, does this equate to Bitcoin going to a new all-time high? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. It depends on Bitcoin dominance, right? You know, what are the alts going to do? What are the alts going to do? Because I want to remind you that Bitcoin made its high on October 6th, 2025, but USDT dominance made its low in August 12th. So Bitcoin made its high almost 2 months after USDT bottomed. How does that make sense? Because all of the altcoins made lower lows. Alts have been getting obliterated because Bitcoin dominance is on the rise. So does this equate to Bitcoin going to an all-time high? I don't know. I don't know. There's no way for me to know. There's no way for me to tell you. I'm sorry. I wish I did. I wish I did know, but I don't know. But this is how important this zone is. And I think we're going to know relatively soon. Okay. You know, I don't know how long things are going to accumulate down here. Perhaps Bitcoin goes sideways and then alts move and whatnot. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. I have to see and keep you guys updated in real time and whatnot. Okay. But if we do form an extended range and Bitcoin does make it down to 80K or whatever, I imagine that it's going to be relatively soon before I'll have a good understanding as to whether or not we're done or we're not done. Okay, I think that there's a strong case. I think that there's a stronger case for the bears, at least in terms of Bitcoin, than the bulls. Okay, the bulls just say M2 money supply. We haven't had euphoria, whatever. M2 money supply is Mickey Mouse. Fear and greed is Mickey Mouse. Haven't had our euphoric state. Like, don't be entitled. You don't deserve it. No one owes you anything. Okay, just because it happened in 2021 doesn't mean you're gonna get it again. The world doesn't work that way. So I think that the bears provide a more compelling, a stronger case. Okay. But again, you know, as traders, we need to be open for all scenarios. And so we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you guys updated on how it goes. I know that this was a very long update and it was very technical and you probably didn't make it to the end. But if you did, I appreciate you because this one kind of took a lot longer than I thought. And I think ultimately your most important level right now on USDT is going to be this zone here. Whatever happens at around 5%, it's either going to do this up and forever and then, or this. And then maybe we head to here and then maybe we do get some explosive, you know, price action. But time will tell. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Do I think that the bear market is here? I don't think Bitcoin needs to go to the high again. Okay. Does that mean that the bear market is here? I don't know. I can't sit here and say that I know. And by the way, anybody on Twitter or anything else that says bottoms in, that's like the number one thing I see. Oh my gosh. They're like bottoms in. Like, okay, no, you don't know that. I don't know that. So why are you pretending? Why are you misleading people? Anyway, yeah, I don't think Bitcoin needs to come up to this high again. Okay, I think it needs to accumulate. I think that the bulls, ironically, they don't know that what they actually want is for it to go down and accumulate properly because that will give it enough juice to send it higher. Otherwise, if it doesn't do that, I would just be looking for a lower high, lower low, and I'll be shorting that shit to zero, to be honest. Not literally zero, but, you know, you get the point. And, I mean, guys, like, you know, Bitcoin's up 800%, 600%, whatever, 700% in 3 years, you know? So how can you say that we haven't had a bull run? Because we absolutely have. Again, if you like the content, make sure to like, hit the subscribe button, notification bell. I will see you guys on live stream. One love.